Good Life Gang and Future 4200 420 Long Beach Sesh. We are super excited to be here today, and we are with our first panel, which is going to dive deep into some technical cannabis processing. I have oh my gosh, if you're only listening to the audio, you are missing out on so many handsome faces right now on this panel. I can't even stand it. But I want to start right to my right with my friend Kyle. And if you guys, just starting with Kyle, could grab a mic and introduce yourselves, and then I want to get into the conversation.
Sweet. Well, thank you for the beautiful introduction. The handsome award goes to Cameron, but I'll take it. Kyle Jones, Illinois the Shatter Guy, Las Vegas GLG Ambassador, gang. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Love it. That's pretty much it. That's not it.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for checking us out. Nate Winokur, founder, Bell Costa Labs, and vice president, here to help talk cannabis science. Happy 420, everyone.
Yeah.
Kameron Walker. Don't really have a brand or anything like that, but just a kind of known consultant in the cannabis industry. Been doing it for 5-6 years. Set up all kinds of labs. Worked with almost everyone in this room. So
Kameron Walker is a brand. That
yeah,
is the brand, baby.
yes.
That is the brand.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, good to be here.
My name's Ken White. Go by Ashton Kutcher on the gram. Thanks for having me. Here to talk through some fun chemistry mechanisms for conversions and isomerizations.
Cool. There you go.
Isomerizations. Okay, so Ken, that's where we're starting. Grab that mic right there, right, and there you go. We're starting with isomerizations. Tell me when you say that. Tell me what it is and why I care.
Isomerization is converting, or an isomer is one molecule that has a specific molecular formula. And you could rearrange the atoms in that molecule, but as long as it still has the same number of atoms, it's technically an isomer. So CBD and THC are isomers of each other. And if you do a little bit of fancy chemistry, you can actually convert CBD into THC.
Really? I've never heard of that.
I imagine that's probably valuable.
That's not true. That is valuable. That is valuable. And Kyle, talk to me about your work in isomers. Is that something you're familiar with on a daily basis?
Yeah, not too much right now because the market's tanked. But yeah, so essentially, like Ken was saying, you can convert CBD into THC. Mainly right now, the most popular is Delta 8 because it's a pretty easy method, pretty common. Yeah, and that is the isomer, is the Delta 8 from CBD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We've got Nate from Bell Costa Labs, which is a analytical testing company. Talk to me about isomers and how they fit into the work that you do every day.
So we test cannabinoids, subcannabinoids. A lot of these isomers of cannabis can be considered in those subcannabinoid fields. Mm-hmm. Where we're at is we want to be able to help people get a good analysis of what they're actually looking at chemically. When we look at the business of conversion and the needs to do it correctly, it's all about consistency and control. Mm-hmm. And I'm able to help through analytics that be achieved because we're able to test so many of these chemicals. Being able to help those keep a beat on their process is, in this sense, what we do.
All right. If you're on this panel and you don't own a test lab, you're allowed to answer this question. Have you gone to a test lab and tried to have a sample tested and had them tell you that they couldn't test it because they don't have a standard for it? Have you been ahead of your test lab?
Only when we were trying to kind of figure out if so like when you're doing the conversion and you have, you convert all of the CBD to Delta 8, you're typically trying to get a compliant sample that has THC below 0.3. So typically if you're looking at a chromatogram on HPLC, you'll see a very large peak for Delta 8 and a very small peak for Delta 9. What we were originally trying to maybe prove was that was this compound called HU331, right. I believe, yeah. Yep. And so a lot of labs at the time didn't have the standard, so we actually had to buy a standard from Kameron, send it to the lab, have them run it as a standard, and then they proved to me that it wasn't, which is sad. But
Yeah.
So yes, on the D10, that's I'm seeing a lot of labs don't test for that yet.
Right,
So
right.
And we just started experimenting ourselves with the D10, and it's kind of hard to find people that are like open. Yeah, we don't really know what we're talking about, but we need someone to test for. Do you test for D10s?
We don't yet test for D10s.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
Now, it's been admittedly a few months since I checked Chemical Standard catalog and what was available. Last I checked was not available.
Who'd you tell me? What was
you
it?
don't make the standard.
Who was it?
Huh?
Emerald.
Emerald and Cayman, I just checked like a couple days ago. They do have a D10.
Okay, that is worth very much checking out. Bear in mind, it's not just having a chemical standard, although for the experiment you mentioned running, where you're looking, rather than quantifying it, you were looking at first to just qualify the existence of that chemical. That you can do fairly easily through a chemical standard. However, the best use of a certified standard is being able to help utilize that for quantification. The method that would be required to help understand and properly quantify delta 10 would still therefore be needing to be examined prior to being able to release that level of information beyond having just the chemical standard.
Can I? You go ahead.
I was just going to say, you should be able to use your same HPLC method. At least if it is the peak that I'm seeing on my chromatogram, it's like further shifted down from 8 and 9, so it's actually well resolved.
Before.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You're seeing it before.
That's what it is. But
Your gas chromatography, though.
oh, where if I do know? Yeah.
What retention time are you at on that?
I mean, the method is going to be different based on your solvent, but it's like 8 minutes or seven something.
And then on the back to the isomerization, a lot of the issue, like he was saying, with really quantifying whether it's compliant or not in the beginning was, like he's saying, you're seeing a large peak for the delta 8 and then almost a hump, right? You're not even a separated peak because they're such similar molecules. So, and being in analytics, it's a lot of it is subjective as to how you set your method, your calibration curve. So that's where you're seeing all these kind of boof or fake COAs that say, oh, it's delta 8 because the analytical chemist looked at it and said, that shoulder, it's delta 8.
Really what's happening is if you're trying to make compliant D8, you send it to certain labs who look at it a certain way where he might say, yeah, it's D9, but the other lab says it's D8, but you're trying to sell compliant D8, so you send it to that lab to get that COA so you can sell it.
The conversation that I'm guessing Nate either loves or hates or both is how subjective analytics can be, because that's the irony.
I love that
the irony
conversation.
is that of course, yes, and that is a powerful conversation to have. We dove hard into the weeds. Like, we just went way down a rabbit hole, and I'm excited that we did, but I know that there are people listening who are like me that are going to zone out when you start talking about humping. I'm not entirely sure what that was about. But Ken, I want you to tell me, when we say isomer, we say delta 8, we did say delta 9, we say delta 10, D10, we throw these terms around. What does that even, I don't even know what we're talking about. Pick up a mic and tell me.
Draw it.
Yeah, can I draw it?
You can draw it. Draw it.
Bear with me.
Thick lines.
Okay. So, typically, what all these magicians are doing in the lab is starting with CBD. I'll probably make that bigger.
Here, bro. Here, Ken.
You can't do both.
Should I hold it for him? Here, bro.
Here, bro.
Here you go.
So we're starting with CBD. That's what you're saying? So you're drawing me CBD right now. And those are carbon chains. They make a nice little 6-sided hexagon there. Carbon loves that. We're so thankful for carbon on this planet, or we'd be also screwed.
Right, whoops, sorry.
Can you shade the lines, Ken?
I'm not an artist.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
Yeah, I think they'll show better.
He'd be there for 5
It's all right. It's all right. Just keep going.
Okay, so basically what people are doing, and there's an SOP up on the Future website. Oh, there is a SOP up on the Future 4200 website right now that basically walks you through this entire process. But essentially you're starting with CBD. You put it in some solvent. You add an acid of your choice. There are many.
Well, it can't be any acid of your choice. It actually has to. be a very low pH chemical compound.
Let's just say
It's
acid.
bicycle day just happened. Like, let's be clear about acid.
That's a good point. Very good point. So, this is CBD's molecular structure.
You want some acid?
CBD, yeah, that'd be great.
This particular double bond right here is reactive.
Okay.
So the electrons that are in this double bond will actually attack the proton that is freely available on any strong acid. The electrons that are in that bond will actually return back to that acid, and then you actually will get a structure that looks like this.
So the acid is a proton acceptor.
It is a proton donator.
So, giver. So acid has an H to share. Base wants your H. Just be aware.
Oh my god, this is really hard to draw.
Ken, I don't think we can see any of that.
Okay, well, we're having a super fun time drawing on the window, and I'm gonna let him do that. While Ken's drawing, I'm gonna let him draw with both hands, and then we're gonna go back to the window. But
That'll do it.
my lipstick is too nice to put on the wall. But listen, here's what I want to say. When you're looking at D8, why are you looking at D8? Why do I even care? Like, why?
Why do you care? In which regard? Because there's many levels to that question. So number one is legality.
Okay.
Right? That's, in my opinion, D9 is federally regulated, D8 is legal in, I believe, 38 states. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that there's actually, I think D8 special because it's not illegal. It's basically what I call unlegal, right? There's no,
Decriminalize.
there's no verbiage about it, right?
Yeah.
So D9 is specified. You cannot have above 0.3% D9. That's what, the hemp or the hemp, what is it, Farm Bill?
Farm Bill.
Yeah, the Farm Bill says, but D8, there's nothing about it. So really, it's in this weird limbo state, and I think the feds aren't touching it. Crazy enough. So we're who knows how long that's going to last. So ride it while you can is what I'm saying. Get your money while you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So what do you
I
think?
can give a little bit of perspective
Yeah,
on that.
let me hear about that.
In the lab industry, there are
Bell Costa Lab.
in the lab industry there are you speak with other labs, including other agricultural labs and DEA labs and what have you. Delta 8 is being currently reviewed. It's not necessarily being broadcast from the rooftops.
There you go.
But I can tell you that the DEA does have their eyes in real time
So here's my question to you.
on Delta 8.
What about the Analog Act?
It makes all of it illegal.
Technically, right?
Realistically, it's a cannabis product, and there is the opportunity, and they've already shown there's already precedent to refer to any cannabis product on the fly as illegal. It really is, and it's obviously much more complicated than that, and obviously not a lawyer level disclaimer at this point. But I can tell you Delta 8's currently in review, and I can tell you if the government as a whole wants to crush it, this is my surprised face.
Yeah. Okay, so Kyle, speak to that, because Kyle, you have a company. This is what you do.
We don't sell any Delta 8, first off.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. The DEA IFR bill that came out stated anything that's synthetically, manufactured, right? So that's essentially everything we do, right? But we kind of look at it as the DEA doesn't manage the Farm Bill. Farm Bill states 0.9 or 0.3 Delta 9. So I think that's kind of where it's in that weird purgatory state. But I do agree with Nate that I'm sure the DEA and the feds are going to come after it, right?
They're studying it, right? It's being studied right now. I mean, please trust me that it's absolutely under review.
Yeah, I wouldn't put all my eggs in the Delta 8 basket unless you can go create something compliant, and you might have to end up switching to a THC license, right? I think that is highly likely. And I think it's just in a very weird state, and we'll see some changes soon, which will suck.
Well, and who do you think is going to see those changes first? I mean, in an ideal world.
Well, the states are already cracking down.
But in an ideal world, the first person who's going to see those changes is going to be Nate in his lab, because he's going to get a nice letter from the government. But in the real world, it's some guy who's got a gas station who has a bunch of Delta 8 carts that's going to have his inventory stolen. So we're going to be informed about the legality of it from the bottom up. We're never informed from the top down, because that's not how any of this works, unfortunately.
Just to throw it out there too, there might be a softer version of this as well. Keep in mind, bear in mind what the FDA did with a number of CBD companies. Was it now going back about 5 years, right? There were letters sent, and specific companies were named. CBD companies, largely topicals, because of some other rulings that have recently been, have recently happened in the last so many months, and politically speaking, fairly recently. Because of some CBD companies, there have even been additional CBD companies, namely topical companies, that have been named by the DEA. We have every reason to believe that whomever becomes the largest of these companies is going to be named. And at that point, you're going to see that.
Which is why Kyle says, I don't make any T8.
You see.
It's an intermediate.
Right.
And
Okay,
so,
yes.
I mean, let's just call it what it is. This scare tactic, which in some levels has been shown to be serious, is nothing that, I mean, you're right here on the fringes of LA. I mean, you remember the 2-letter system, one to the traditional market dispensary and one to the landlord, and then, on to the next location kind of thing.
Right.
That's not that far off from, this making somebody, this indication, this sort of public, kind of placement of saying, hey, company, you're next. And whether or not that ever actually pans out is out for the jury to decide. But usually that scare tactic works. We'll see something like that.
Cameron, is that going to work on you?
I think.
No.
No.
I'm not saying it should work.
But I can tell you this: the bigger you are, the bigger the target is on your back. So I agree with him. They're gonna go after the top 3 guys. They're gonna smash them. Probably one of them they're gonna throw the book at, and everyone else is gonna be like,
learned.
No.
Well, and Ken, what do you do when what your job is teaching people about organic chemistry? That's all you're a chemist. I mean, this is chemical engineering. This is the same chemical processes that take place over the planet, either in nature or in labs, all the time, and yet there's all these other considerations, when what you really want to be thinking about is what's my best buffer, and what's my best asset, and what's my best process, and writing the SOP. But we got all this to manage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's ultimately my goal, is to be able to do the R&D and put in that side of work so that I can show people how to make it compliantly so that it fits in within the Farm Bill specifications, so that we can hit on the D8 side below 0.9 Delta 9 THC residual.
And that is designing a process for business success.
That's correct.
You're saying this is what the business model is, and I'm going to make a process and come up with this so that I'm compliant, so that I can have a company that makes money.
Yeah,
And if I
anybody
may,
with a can and solvent and some acid can technically make isomers of CBD, but you really have to do some.
Dude, my body makes isomers of CBD. Step off. I'm doing that right now.
And at the end of the day, we need a catalog of cannabinoids, and you're building that. You're helping to come up with the methods for that. To suggest that this doesn't exist in something as common as corn, where there are 19 different extracted and product variants of corn, because scientists have put in the work and actually shown these variants and chemically what you can accomplish by creating derivatives of the base product. I would suggest that core of work is never going away. DEA be damned. Let's just talk about, in a compliant setting, you're allowed to render chemicals compliantly, legally, and as we render them, we're going to do this research. We're going to understand these things. We're going to have a need for quantifying these things. That's all in our culture right now. So I think on one hand, it's easy to see, how quickly the boat tips between those making it for the masses and the uncertain future of subcannabinoids, say through the lens of Farm Bill. But on the other side of things, this is cannabis. It's not going anywhere. Being able to render this into different compounds and be able to further formulate those compounds into new products, that's where we're all at, right?
And we need some amnesty around mid-process components that are being tested. Like, when I have somebody who's doing everything right, they might have a whole lot of Delta 9 THC in their hemp processing facility for like an hour.
Work in progress.
It's work in process. So there needs to be some immunity. I mean, we need to. Don't know why I waste my breath saying that regulations need to be smart, but regulations need to be smart, Kyle.
And I agree with Nate. I agree with Ken too.
Can you agree with me?
And you too. Oh, that's a given.
Fills my cup.
Yeah, on the point of R&D, Farm Bill, DEA, whatever it is, I'll never stop pushing the R&D bill, right? Like that's to me the most important part, right? So we'll keep testing, we'll keep doing R&D, writing white papers, and yeah.
Dude, R&D white papers, you took an SOP for the hottest commodity in the business and made it public and free. That's what you did.
That's what you have to do.
No, it's not what you have to do, because it's not what a lot of other motherfuckers do.
Yeah, stop giving away secrets.
It's what you did. It's what you did. And your commitment to the community is there is something that 3 minutes ago people were paying $100,000 easy in consulting fees to get an SOP that's not as good as the one you gave away for free that you could have kept to yourself, and you could have kept to yourself. And so I applaud you. That's the whole point of Future 4200. That's the whole point of what we're doing here, is that, the more we give away for free to the community, the more successful we're going to be, because you're giving things away that people want to hire you to come to their lab to teach them how to do things.
And that's exactly what happened, right? So I released the SOP because I wanted people to be able to create at least a baseline for safe product. It's not the best method, it's not compliant. I will gladly say that, unfortunately, but it's really so people could start to create safe product. I'm hearing stories of people in a kitchen with a crock pot throwing bleaching clays into CBD. Like, that's not cool. That's how people are going to get hurt. That's how our industry is really going to get destroyed. So, yeah. And it didn't hurt my business either. I still get consults for it. So more, yeah, exactly. So it doesn't hurt to help. And again, that's exactly what we're here for. Like, that's our community to the T. Yeah.
I love it. Ken, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just echoing Kyle on that, as like, even outside of like the financial sacrifices or gains or whatever you want to call it, just pointing people in the right direction to create a safer product that ultimately winds up on the market gives us a lot more success moving forward, and like getting approval from agencies like the DEA or what other government bodies, right? So safe products is where it starts.
Nate, I don't know if this is too hard of a question to ask, but could you, in terms of Delta 8, would it represent 10% of your testing business, 3%, 20%?
Oh, that'd be a good metric.
Nope. Like how have you seen the request for D8 testing over the last, I want to say 6 to 12 months?
So just a quick perspective in terms of testing business. We're between 150 and 250 complete batches per day. To say it's anywhere close to 1% would be way overboard.
Okay, so it's a tiny bit. And is it in the last 3 months, the last 6 months, the last 30 days?
So there's been a timeline with Delta 8. I can go back. We've been around for 3 years, and I got a chance to see plenty of Delta 8 as an accident, as people...
Carbon in the short path.
Yep.
And changing color on their D9 and trying to make water clear. Yep. That's how we found it.
There you go. That's how we found it. Yep. So what do you see next? What's the next ask? What in your business?
So these are all. So whenever you're looking at chemistry of cannabis, and especially working in the chemical engineering angle, it's really about the goals that are in place. What are you trying to manufacture? What level of efficiency are we looking at? Now, I know it's starting to be done, but a point I made with a few of even my co-panelists before we got into this broadcast discussion was the need to be able to further review, further log, and be able to completely understand this process. It's not homogenous. If you put the exact amount of cannabis with the exact amount of diluted with the exact amount of diluted acid and the exact volume of vat that it's to be processed in for the same amount of time, you will get different answers across the board. Temperature consistent and everything. We need to understand that. We need to see what those levels of.
But I mean, don't we understand it? We understand it because it's a botanical product that has variations.
The few, now I have to admit that of some of the great minds that are here in the Delta 8 world, I don't yet have the opportunity to work with them. The minds of the Delta 8 world that I do have the opportunity to work with are not thorough. compared to what's being discussed here.
I want somebody to speak to that point.
If anything, I'm seeing the levels of this work in what's coming to me that is, and I mean to both the audience and especially to my co-panelists, pretty laughable in terms.
Yeah, no scientific method at all.
Okay.
No logging. I mean, quite literally, the Delta 8 business that I see right now, if they show hot, which, to the crowd, the definition of hot is above 0.3% as dictated in the Farm Bill. If it shows as hot, do they work with me to revise a method, or do they go to another laboratory that, even though this makes zero logical sense, that lab, as long as they'll show them the number that they want to see, they continue with the distribution.
So this is a goal and intention. Is your goal to
here.
provide safe Delta 8 to your customer, or is your goal to check a box that you have a COA and to get it on the market?
The vast majority of CBD, Delta 8, and other what could be considered Farm Bill level business, vast majority is checking a box. I would actually suggest that it's 10% or less of Delta 8 or CBD business that's anywhere close to concerned about either continued projects that allow for real levels of research, again, like what we're discussing here, what my co-panelists are already into doing, which is where it's at, or doing at least full panel testing to make sure that the CBD or other product is ethical and not going to harm people, because as we know, Farm Bill really only dictates something like potency, where things like California panel, which is also what I specialize in, has damn near a dozen different panels, 90% of which are safety panels. That doesn't exist for a lot of Farm Bill style business that comes to my lab. I'm not saying, and I'm not defending that. It should.
Well, no, but I mean, that's the truth. So Ken, as a consumer, talk to me as a consumer. How do I know if we're not even testing for the things we don't know? What are the places that I could go wrong as a consumer buying product, even when it has a COA?
I mean, that's the point right there. I mean, even let's just say Nate's lab, if they do the utmost testing of what's required, even full compliance panel testing, for example, like I was trying to show the mechanism here, you throw a strong acid into this solution to make the conversion happen. Well, if you don't wash that out, it's going to wind up in your end product. You could take that end product and send it all the way through your excellent testing,
and it won't show up.
It's not going to show up.
Because we're not testing for acid.
You're not testing for that.
We're testing for Delta 9.
Exactly.
Which, again, goes back to the box checking. And it's nothing against your guys' labs. I mean, you guys can only test for so much and still have throughput, right? But, this is the evolution of where we're going.
But that's the difference between...
That's
the difference between
I brought this up to
a qualitative test and a quantitative test.
Right.
I'm going to him for a quantitative test. Tell me how much of X is in this vial.
Right.
Not a qualitative test, which is tell me all the peaks. What are all the constituents in this product? That it's a different question. Yeah. And that's why it's so important that you guys are doing what you're doing in terms of R&D, because you have to inform the ask to the test lab. Sure. Right. Somebody has to say, start testing for this, start looking for this, because if you're not looking for it, you're not going to see it. That's not how these tests work.
That really does come down to consumer education as well. Why would a company pay what could be arguably hundreds of dollars extra for this type of test if nobody knows to look out for it?
Well, and some things aren't relevant. Like, I don't want to know. I don't need, I don't want to make something up because I'm
going to smoke it anyway. Why should I feel bad about it?
Yeah, I got to say, Kyle, that was really cool how you released that SOP. I think it is really important, because you guys are all right. It is dangerous to be smoking these acids, and I think he's absolutely right that people are, I've been to a lot of these labs, I've been to labs literally across the country, over probably 50 labs. A lot of these people really are in barns. They're not, it's by no means pharmaceutical or even close.
No.
So
there's actually an ISO accreditation outfit out there that'll accredit labs and garages.
Yeah, there you go.
I've seen them in Arizona. It's pretty wild.
Was it like ISO 1000?
No.
So
it's like ISO 710. It's slightly less than that.
Cameron, although I appreciate the joke, I'm not kidding. ISO 17025 labs, if we're using a crappy accreditor, can get accredited in your garage.
Okay, but I don't want to get off on that. But when we're talking about quality, Like, all ISO means is I'm making the same shitty product the exact same way every single time. All it means is repeatability. It doesn't mean inherent value or quality.
If I may, there's different accreditation agencies. Some of those accreditors will strip your ISO so quickly if you screw around. Some of those accreditation agencies, here's my French, no fucks given.
Right.
Like, that is for real. There are accreditation agencies that don't care and let you keep it no matter what, and there are ones that will absolutely strip it from you, and you lose your ISO.
But this is where, okay, but that is where, again, we stumble, because what ISO accreditation says is I'm going to do this exact same thing this exact way every single time. The inspector comes in and says, you're doing that differently. Well, the reason I'm doing that differently is that I learned. I'm getting better. I want to apply this new methodology. I want to insert a step. All an ISO person is doing is comparing two things, and if it doesn't match, it's kicked out. And so innovation, there has to be room in a quality system, which is why I don't think ISO is like the optimal quality system. There has to be room in a quality system for improvement, for constant improvement, and for innovation. What were you going to say, Kyle? I interrupted you.
No, back to the testing for the acids or other impurities, right? You'd have to have a lab that cares enough to go and find a standard or create a standard, then create methodology. It's hard to get a company to care about that when so much of the industry is just financial. And even with Nate, right, he's saying it's such a small percentage of his business. Is he going to take his labor force? Is he going to take the cost to build that? Is that something that's important? It's obviously important, but how many labs are going to go do that, right? And I think that's also where we stumble, is we know as technicians and chemists and labs that we need to create these methods so then we can validate these things, and we're not doing it. So, I'll even say, like, that's something I need to do. I need to create that method and test for it at my own lab. So we're stumbling there.
And that's what's cool about Nate. Hats off to you guys. Me and Nate were having a conversation before this outside, and we were talking about some of our methods, and basically we've been keeping really good track of everything we're doing as far as all the conversions, and we've been working on a lot more than just D8. We've been doing D9, D10, CBN, blah, 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 if you name them. Thought it was really cool that we said that we have been cataloging basically our experiments, and he offered to work with us. He thought it was, he already knew that this was an issue. He said, yeah, we need to be testing for these residual acids and bases, whatever you're using, and you're already ahead of that, and I think that's really cool.
See, and this is why Future 4200, the Good Life Gang, the meetups, this is the most important thing that happens. The most important thing that happens is that somebody with a nail meets somebody with a hammer. And like, we get together and it's a beautiful thing, and that is what makes us all level up and what I love. If we're holding to the timeline here, we've got about 10 more minutes, and I
could talk for like 3 more hours, bro.
I could listen to you for 3 more hours is the thing. We'll do that later.
You know what? I also want to give my hats off to you. You're a great host. I feel like you could do like really cool stuff, like game shows and stuff, like on on TV. You kill it.
Well, thanks
You're good.
for bringing it up. I've got a giant wheel I'm going to pull out right now, and we're all spinning for something. You know what? This is my. If it seems like I'm super proud of you and I love you and I'm rooting for your business and I want you to succeed, even though we've known each other for 5 minutes, it's because I'm super proud of you and I want your business to succeed, and I want this. I want the cream to rise to the top, and I want the cream to be a higher percentage of the industry than it is. I want that bucket to be all of the best in the game, doing the thing to move us further. I've got my eye on the next generation, which is probably half of you, but I've got my eye on kids coming up, and one thing that, I would love to do is I want to partner with a test lab. So I'll put you on the spot right now. Every single day, the principal at my kids' high school is collecting vape cartridges, and sometimes they're nicotine, sometimes they're cannabis, but they're shit, they're swill, they're things that are going to hurt people. And I was talking to
VapeGate 2 years ago. We all know. We all know.
Even that. I mean, thank you, COVID, for delivering us from VapeGate. Right. But anyway, one of the things I thought of is getting with a test lab and sending those things in and saying, can I give this kid the panel, and can I say, this is what you were breathing in? And like, I'm not going to tell you it's going to kill you, because they told me, Nancy Reagan told me pot was going to kill me forever, and it didn't do me any good at all. So I don't want to lie to them, I don't want to do anything else, but I want to give them this sheet of paper and say, this is what you were breathing in, and look at all that shit. Do you really want to be that? You know?
So the tricky part of that is in order to have enough for a panel, we need them to get a fair amount, like think a baggie full of cartridges, because you can't just take one cartridge and run a full panel. Au contraire, those things act pretty well as sponges,
Okay.
you know, in terms of the heating element and what goes into that, usually that ceramic sponge that's in there. And because of that, because say 1 ml or 1 gram goes in, we're lucky to get a 1/4 gram out sometimes, depending
gotcha.
on the cartridge style.
Yeah.
So 1/4 gram on a good
We
day.
take like
for
10 of
one
them and
test.
just smash them.
Yeah.
And then heat it up and get it out of there.
So if somebody holds up the riot load of cartridges, yes, bring it to me. You know,
I will. I'm gonna do
I'd be
it.
happy to test that for
There's
free
a
and see
drawer in
what's
the
up.
principal's office, and he'll give it to me.
So if it's a lot of them at
yeah.
once, I could do it. Now, just for some quick perspective, I did get my hands on a half dozen of the exact same flavor of the same brand, of course, of traditional market cartridge recently. And so what I'm about to tell you, because these numbers are so astonishing, you almost can't take it seriously until you understand what happens when something isn't regulated.
Give us the low.
When something isn't regulated, there's this fucking rainbow that shows of contaminants that come back on a test. And the big concern is here that when you run something through subpar process, and starting with a subpar product, you're going to leave residuals, massive levels of residuals in that process, in that equipment, and in that solvent. And then you're going to run the next one and the next one. And what you're doing is taking off contamination and recontaminating.
And this is that rainbow, that veritable rainbow that I'm talking about.
And so this last time I did have a chance to test it, failed for 16 different pesticides out of
Seen that multiple times.
25 detected. 25 detected out of 66, and failed for damn near 1/4 of what's on the California panel.
That was a
Bearing in
conversion?
mind that there are some really rare ones on the California
Well,
panel
and
you'll
that
never
poor
run
customer
into.
has to go find another test lab now. So that's
Oh, yeah.
heartbreaking. Ken, what were you going to
Where did the trim come from? Do you know?
Well, at this point, the rainbow
got you.
suggests that the trim
I
came
got
from
you.
everywhere.
Yeah, that's
It's just
the
an
only
it's
way
an
you get that is
unchecked
when you get some
process.
trim from NorCal, some trim from Central Cal.
Exactly it. It's an
They all
unchecked
use different
process.
shit.
Some crude from the cartel.
Yeah, right.
That's-
Mexico.
You guys aren't joking. You straight up.
Ken, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just basically echoing that, and I mean, you know, it's not even just like trace residuals of your reagents that you're putting into it too. I mean, we're also making new cannabinoid species that haven't really been identified that well. I mean, you know, there are exo versions of these isomers that show up like a little shadow mirror image of the D8 and D9 peaks that we're all looking for. You know, there's new compounds like THCQ, which is the quinone, like fully oxidized version of THC that may actually have some legitimate therapeutic value that we could actually end up utilizing. And so, like, a lot of this effort is going to lead to big.
I'm excited
you know,
about processing. Sorry to interrupt you, but the processing implications that comes from knowing oxidized THC, that's amazing to know if you're over.
Can you test for THCQ today?
Today?
Well, this week. This week.
I don't even know
No.
if the big chemical suppliers even have those standards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really.
You gotta have the standard.
Yeah, I mean, the chemistry is just now evolving to the point to where these species are being made and being identified.
That's the guys we need to get into this meeting. Is the guys who make the standards. Someone needs to get a hold of those guys.
Well,
And
I
bring
mean,
those
that's
guys in
not.
here.
That's,
Those guys are really doing the conversions.
Well, I mean, Ken can make a standard, right? Like we can kind of make our own standards, right? We can get as pure as we can, get to NMR, right? Something, right? We can start mass spec, right? We can start to do that.
You need to be a specific kind of ISO lab so you need to be
With a DEA
I
license.
might be misquoting, but I think you need to be an ISO 17036 lab in order to develop those for an ISO 17025
and you
lab.
need
So you need to be a
DEA
specific type of lab.
DEA license.
That wouldn't shock me either
Yeah.
about the DEA license.
Yeah,
yes.
for sure.
I'm not there as we don't manufacture any
But to
chemical
ship that
standards.
across state lines, you need to have
Wouldn't
that.
shock me at all.
What you got,
Nate,
Cameron?
can you get ResTech up in here? We need to get ResTech.
So
Dustin, get ResTech.
we need to bring him in here on the guise of a big sale, and then just put him in front of the firing squad. Really, just like when's this going to happen?
I want to.
Kidding, but yeah, no. I mean, that honestly.
Sounds cool.
To the crowd, ResTech is a company that manufactures chemical standards, many of which. So they are a CSR provider for certified standards.
Right.
And they are able to produce many of the ones that we use on the panel. For context, a lot of the chemicals we've discussed here do not have chemical standards. ResTech would be the one that we'd love to.
They're the guys really doing the conversions.
Mm-hmm.
They're
put them in the middle of this, because not only do they understand these chemicals, they have to manufacture them and they have to quantify them
Right.
and guarantee their perfection at the cost of their own ISO licensing.
Right. Well, and it's complicated for them because they're limited as to what they can do to keep their DEA license.
And we pop up on Future 4200. They'll be getting like $500,000 offers. Be like, what's up?
All
We'll hire you right now.
I want to wrap it up, and I want to. I know that people listening are going to want to follow you on Instagram, follow you on the forum. So can we do that? Can you start and just your name, how we follow you, how we be in touch?
Yeah. Again, my name is Ken White. You can follow me on Instagram at HashtonKusher.
Spell that.
See what he did there? Hashton.
Ashton Kusher.
Like hash and kush. I get it.
Hash and Kush. Yep. Lots of underscores in there. You'll find it. It's not that big a deal. But yeah, I was originally planning on doing a lot of electron pushing and structure drawing up here. I'll make a separate video and post it to the Instagram so that people can just like
Yes,
look at
please.
it that way.
Yes, please.
That's a nightmare. So.
Cool. And again, my name is Kameron Walker. It's with a K. Kameron with a K. My Instagram is Whamron Cocker. So it's just my the two. Yeah. Swapped out. Yep. First letter, last letter swapped out.
This has got to be a game show one day, trying to explain like how you came up with your handle.
Just write hashtags.
Nate, Canacentric, because cannabis is the pretty much the center of what I do.
I'm gonna follow you right now.
I'm Canacentric.
I don't think I'm following you.
Please do. And then Bell Costa Labs, of course, just like the hat.
Yeah.
And thank you guys so much. Happy 420, everyone. We'll see you later.
For
Happy
sure.
420. Don't drive high.
Or just don't get pulled over.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Don't drive high.
Kyle Jones, Illini the Shatter Guy on Instagram, Las Vegas GLG all over the world, you know it. And then check out our new lab. It's the first and only Future 4200 GLG lab called Future Compounds. So definitely check that out. We'll have a bunch of these minors and rare cannabinoids working with Ken. So check out Future Compounds on IG. Yeah. Awesome. And thank you, everyone. I love our fucking community. They're so dope. The squad is crushing it. No matter where we go, no matter where we're at, everyone's learning and growing and just helping each other. It's the dopest community I've ever come across in my life. So
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
I could not agree more. I'm Sidco Cat, and this has been my absolute pleasure. You guys are all so smart, and I wish you all the very best in your business. And I want you guys to make a lot of money and have time to take care of your families and do the things you want to do, and all success to you. So thank you so much for having us here today. Thank you. And let's wrap it.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Great day.
Take care.
Let's take your shots.